All right, this is Glenn O'Neill and Jeremiah Asher recording a demo of the current version of the updated Great Lakes Watershed Management System. And so we'll just jump right into it. Jeremiah, do you want to talk about the main page at all?
Yeah, so this is just the main page we've still been working on. We pretty much have most of the pieces filled in. We're going to be disabling the wind erosion at the moment while we're still getting some estimates on having that developed and put in place there. So I think we're in hopes of having that here in the next year. We'll just kind of gray it out so that people might anticipate it coming, but not having it finalized. We're working on the different views on the customized view section. So we're going to have just Glenn go into the Saginaw Bay watershed portion of that and start showing the updates on that. This is mainly just to be able to give people an opportunity to view the mapping interface who aren't going to be able to see this on our call tomorrow. So go ahead, Glenn.
All right, so Jeremiah said I'm going to launch into the Saginaw Bay Watershed Conservation Partnership customized view. And again, the goal, one of the primary goals with the new system was to, as best we could, simplify the layout of the system, make it a little more user-friendly, provide a bit more opportunities for hand-holding through the system, because we are adding quite a bit of new functionality in there, and some of that is fairly complex. So we're trying to walk that fine line between accessibility, but also complexity in terms of what it can do. And so we're trying to reflect that in that new update. So we've moved the buttons that had been previously housed on the right-hand side of the original GLWMS and the submenus, and we've tried to make it more like a program with a toolbar so that those options are more readily accessible than they were in the previous system. And so these buttons up here on the top essentially function like a toolbar with drop downs and various options in there. And another key feature of this new system is that we're trying to also make it a flexible design so that we can expand its functionality as new programs and modules become available. So the analysis options are now organized in modules that can be activated by the user as needed. If they're not particularly interested in groundwater recharge, they don't have to activate that, and those types of analyses won't be made available to them. But they have the options of turning on one or more of these as well. I'll demonstrate that as I move through the system. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to try and move relatively briskly through the options that are here from left to right. So the map layers are tucked away on the left-hand side there, and the same map layers that were in the original system are there as well, and you can turn them on. But we wanted to provide a little more real estate for the map itself, so we have it tucked away over here on the left-hand side. You can close that and get the full map. So current program payments, another request that TNC had made was the ability for users to see available programs, not just in their area, but available programs in general and what the current payments are for those programs. So we have a button right at the top called Current Program Payments. And if you click that, it'll open up a table, and it'll show the various programs that we've stored on the system in the database and what their payment rates are. Some of them, like the Groundwater Recharge Pay for Performance program, the payment rate 0.000849 cents per acre, per gallon of recharge, is based off performance. Some of them, like the RCPP, pay for specific practices, and they have a particular rate for particular practices. And so that's not by performance, but that's per acre. So a user can come here and view these relatively quickly, and since these are stored in the database, we can update these periodically as if these payment rates change or if there are new programs to be added, that can all be reflected in here. And so moving along, the analysis wizards are kind of the primary way we are trying to make the system a little more user-friendly and walk them through conducting an analysis on the system, especially as some of the options have become a little more complex and a little more robust. We felt that a wizard was necessary to help them with that. And so we're envisioning potentially having multiple kinds of wizards tailored to specific functions. But right now I'm going to just demonstrate what we have as what we call the generic wizard for this particular interface of the GLWMS. And what it walks the user through the process, asking them to start with a project name. If they log in, they can choose to work with an existing project. And then it asks them to start drawing. And this was another request that TNC made, that when you are going to interact with the map and draw, that the other windows go away and you have a more open screen. So there's a draw window tucked over here, and so the user has more real estate to work with here. So we'll just zoom in. In Saginaw, switch to imagery. Close this, zoom in a bit. And we'll work on this field here. Draw a nice simple square highlighting it. Another function that we added down a bit was the ability to edit digitized features. So I drew a field here. I could delete the field if I wanted to, but we also have an icon here with a pencil to edit, and I can come in here and I can adjust the boundaries or reposition a particular feature if need be. Hit done, and that brings me back into the wizard. And so now the system's looking for available programs for that field. So in the background, oh, my screen is frozen. Okay, hold on. I think that was Zoom. So in the background, the system took those coordinates and queried the data we have on where certain programs are available, and it displays that to the user. And some of these are hyperlinks, so if they want more information about it, they can click on that and it'll bring them to a page about that. All right, so we'll continue on. Next, it's going to ask the user to describe their field, and in this step, they have to decide what modules they want to utilize. I'm going to activate the water erosion, groundwater recharge, and the nutrient loading modules, and it lists them here. And in the column here where it asks if they're ready to analyze, I put my cursor over, it tells me that we still have to provide, describe the field in detail. And we'll take a look at those in closer detail in a moment, but I'm going to utilize another new function that we added, which we call cross-module input. This was another specific request that was made, which allows the user to describe a few attributes of a field that would be applied to all three modules. So only two questions that we have right now. I'm not going to read all this for you, but it essentially explains the concept of using cross-module input. But the first question is, what is the current land use for the area? And I'm going to say conventional tillage. And do you want to evaluate the impact of a land cover change or BMP? And we'll say no-till. I'll apply, and it'll let me know that it applied the cross-module parameters. And now what happens, if I go into the water erosion module, those options have been pre-selected for me, the conventional till and the no-till. And I'm going to hit done. I'll go in the groundwater recharge, and it has a slightly different code. It has the equivalent of a conventional tillage and a no-till in the groundwater recharge module, which is a corn-soybean rotation and a corn-soybean rotation under no-till. So they're not apples to apples, but we did try and map those common practices as best we could across the modules. Now, for the nutrient runoff, I selected conventional till, as the current land use, but there isn't a comparable option under the nutrient module just because of the way that it's designed and tailored and how LCF functions. So it's going to pick what will have to be the next best option, which is this cropland generalized option. Let me click done on here. All right, so I have those 3 check marks letting me know that these modules have been sufficiently parameterized and described, so we can run the modules. And so what's happening now is that the system is going to run each of the models in succession, each of the modules, I should say. So it displays all of the module outputs here. We have the nutrient runoff outputs, recharge outputs, and the water erosion outputs. And so the system's grinding away, and we've added a progress bar to give the user a better sense as to how long it'll take. And the progress bar will get provide a better estimate the more people utilize the system, since we're going to be tracking how long each simulation takes, and that'll adjust how long the progress bar is programmed for. But we set some initial values, and it seems to do all right. So it's at 100%. Still has a few seconds left. Now that it's done, it gives me the options to save the results. But I can scroll through this list, and all the various module outputs are now available to the user based off of what they described. And so unlike the previous system where you'd have to run all of these independently, now these can be all run in one simulation. Let me get back to the potential payments, this view potential payments option. I showed the current program payments window before. If I click on this, it'll take this simulation and it'll show the modeled results. And based off of the programs that this particular field was eligible for, it will calculate a potential payment. So the recharge was looking at a 1.2 million increase in gallons per year for this particular area. And at that rate, that would translate to a little over $1,000 in payment. The sediment reduction pay for performance, the conversion from conventional tillage to no-till modeled a 4.5-ton reduction at $150 per ton. That's translated to a payment of $678. And again, the RCPP one was based off acres, so it wasn't looking at the modeled results. It just took the acres and the fact that it was no-till, and the payment for no-till at 1523 translated to 683. So this was another request that we had, that people be able to, users be able to see the potential payments they could realize through their simulations. And if they wanted more details about those payments, there's a link to a document about RCP payments and for each particular practice, because there's quite a bit of detail in terms of what the practices could be, and we weren't able to capture all of that in the system, but we give them an estimate of what the potential payments might be. All right, I can save this simulation. It's going to tell me I have to log in first. Logged in, save it. I'm going to call it demo simulation 1. We've added some optional details when they save a simulation run, including whether it was installed, if it was part of a conservation program, installation dates and end dates. Some new ones are who referred them, if anybody. You could say the NRCS Conservation District. And these options had been previously buried a little deeper in the original system, and so we wanted to make them more accessible when the user was saving a particular simulation. Telling me the scenario was saved. And so now that's saved to my account. All right, and so I'm going to reload the system to demonstrate a few other options. give me one moment. Let me start fresh. Log in. Let me move along here. Another request was that the drawing tools be more readily accessible, and so a user can just zoom in on a particular area, and under draw fields, there's an option to draw fields on a map, and that'll bring the draw window up directly. Another option in terms of drawing fields is users can upload fields from a shapefile. Let me demonstrate that real quick. So again, this provides instructions to the user on what they need to do in order to do that. For the sake of time, I won't read through all of this, but you have to locate your zip file. Let me do that. I had one. This was from a previous request that I had to upload results or shapefiles to the original GLWMS system. So this should be a good example. So the users are asked to either specify a name, a field name in the shapefile that will represent the project name, or they can just provide project name themselves. And have to identify a name in the shapefile that would correspond with the scenario name. I'm going to assume the user would know, since it's their shapefile, which one of these would be most appropriate, but the only requirement is that it has to be a unique, a field that has unique values in it. So for this example, I'm just going to use the unique feature ID that's stored in the shapefile. And I can specify some parameters that will be applied to all these features. So for example, if this was an RCPP project, we probably just primarily be interested in utilizing the water erosion module. So I'll leave that as selected. So that means that these features will be uploaded, and it will store the fact that these were simulations that utilize the water erosion module. And I could say that they're all installed, that they're part of RCPP, and perhaps they were all referred through a crop advisor. And I'll hit upload. All right, and it told me that it uploaded the records. And I'll go to my projects, and have upload demo 1. And now I have all these simulations in my GLWMS account. Each one of these is a water erosion simulation stored on the system. All right. So that's how you can now do a batch upload of fields from a shapefile onto the system. Now, related to that is the ability to do a batch run simulation. And what you can do is you can take perhaps features that you just uploaded or simulations that you had just uploaded, and you can run them through a batch simulation. So these are all these simulations saved in my account, and I could select one or all of them or a number of them. I could also filter these by a particular project. Perhaps I just want all the ones I just uploaded, so I could select those, or perhaps I want something else. So let's select some of these. I'll add them to my simulation list. I hit continue. So next I could specify specific module parameters to apply to them. So if I just selected 10 simulations and I wanted to put all 10 through a recharge and water erosion simulation, similar to what you saw before. Similar to the window you saw before where I was describing these features, I could activate the water erosion and recharge modules. Again, I could utilize the cross-module input option and say I want to simulate a conversion of conventional tillage to no tillage. Hit apply. still have to go in to make any other changes or specifications to the modules that I would need. It would tell me they're ready. I hit continue. It would then ask me, where do I want to store all these simulations that are going to be run? And I could store it in a new project on the system. I could store it in an existing project in my account, or I could just say don't save them, because ultimately what you'll receive is an emailed spreadsheet with the results of all those simulations. And it'll email you the results to the account on your system. Now, the simulations take a while. If we're going to run, say, 20 simulations, each one of those are run consecutively. So they're not all done at once. So it can take a while. The previous simulation that I demonstrated took about 45 seconds to a minute. So if you have 20 to run, it might take 20 minutes. But you'll get an email once that simulation is complete. And I have, let's see. I'm looking in the wrong folder. I had a previously generated result I had in that account. Well, you get emailed, what you would be emailed is a spreadsheet with all the simulations and the various outputs from the different modules in them. So I thought I had that file on here with the previously run demo. I'm not going to run it right now because it would probably take a while. But I encourage you to try it out and you can see what that spreadsheet looks like. But again, it would be, it would list, the rows would be all the features, all the simulations that you'd selected to run. And the columns would be all the various module outputs. So groundwater recharge depth, groundwater recharge volume, the outputs from water erosion, should be sediment reduction, erosion reduction, and you'd be able to view it all in one spreadsheet. Okay, moving along. Another option that we've added was the ability to view uninstalled practices. So you can bring up this dialog here, and I think the motivation behind this was they wanted users to quickly be able to identify if certain practices weren't installed, and so that they could make those adjustments relatively quickly instead of having to navigate this option, which is a little more buried in the original system. So by clicking that button, you can view all the uninstalled practices stored within your account, and we can pick one. For example, this here, we can use this edit button again, and it's listed as not installed, and we can make that change, save those edits, and that's no longer an option here. It's been removed from the list of uninstalled practices. So just a quick and simple option that we added to the new system. The last thing I'm going to cover in this update is the ability to migrate old projects. So at some point when we're ready to deploy this, we have the scripts in place that will migrate the old GLWMS projects to the new database. Since the databases are different, since we moved to this new layout, it did necessitate some changes to the back-end database for the system. And so when we're ready to deploy, we'll execute those scripts, and it'll essentially take the current copy of the what we'll call the old GLWMS database, and it'll import those records and modify them so that they are compatible in the new format. And that way we'll be able to start the new system with a fresh, clean copy. Now, it's possible that users may, perhaps they prefer the older system, or perhaps they had done some work after that date. And so there will be an option to migrate old projects. Now, we have instructions here that there'll be that update that takes place prior to deployment, and we'll figure out what that date is. So right now, I just have it as a temporary placeholder here. But what this menu will show is your projects on the old system. And all it asks is for you to specify a name for the new project in the new system, and you would hit Migrate Project, and it now took those old records from the current GLWMS, modified them, and stored them in the project name that you specified here. So that'll be one way for users who perhaps still had some data on the old system that they generated prior to the deployment, but they'll still be able to migrate that over. So some current things that are still under development, the reporting interfaces, we're still pulling that together. We're going to make the layout of the reporting interface a little less cumbersome, a little more concise than it was on the previous system, and particularly the report development part where you can specify what goes into a particular report. The administrative reporting piece is still in there. That was one of the first things that we developed for the new system, and this can generate broader reports for all the various simulations that have been stored within a particular geography that a user could define. So you could draw your own customized area, and the system would identify all the simulations that have been generated within that area and generate a report on the model outputs that are available for that particular area. So that's the update that I have now. Jeremiah, if you have any questions or comments or thought perhaps I missed something, feel free to chime in. If you're still on. All right, and with that, I'm going to stop the recording.
Say, hold on. Keep it on there. I was muted here.
Are you on mute?
Yeah. I think you got most of the major functions, features that we wanted to report on covered through that. The only other couple pieces that we'll have to have some additional discussion about that maybe we can think about for the meeting tomorrow is how we want to handle the different interface views for the general public and for the Saginaw Bay in particular. So we'll have a little bit of discussion about that. Right now we've been mostly focused on getting the major pieces for the Saginaw Bay, and then kind of the parallel have been developing the general piece, but we just need to have a few discussions about how we want to separate those ultimately. And then another one is we'll need to coordinate as we move forward. We're going to be working with NRCS Meet program to do a customized view for them. And there are some I think we're more in the reporting bits and pieces for Saginaw Bay and the Meet process that we may want to talk together about as a group to see what kind of information we might want to be able to share with each other from a reporting out standpoint based off some recent conversations I had with them. So that's another thing we can bring up at tomorrow's meeting and in the future as we get a little bit closer to that point. But with that, I think that's it for the update, at least the visual parts here. We're going to have we'll be covering these same pieces tomorrow, but again, it's just for those who weren't able to see the visual part that they would be able to at least see the system prior to know what we were talking about tomorrow.